This is the 100th episode in 100 days of the Army of Spies Cardano Rumor Rundown. This is the Ask Me Some Things episode. Ready? Let's go. We did it. You and I, all of us together, have been talking about Cardano every single day for 100 straight days. We didn't miss a single day. We've been talking about Cardano every single day. And I think this thing we're all a part of, I think it's something important. I think this Cardano thing is something important. And whether you've been here since the very start or you just barely joined up, thank you for being on this crazy ride with me and all of us together. All right, Army of Spies, let's do this. Remember, I'm not the Army of Spies. You guys are the Army of Spies. I'm just here with you. I'm just among you. So I forgot to ask anybody's permission to reveal their identity as the person posing the question. So I truly do respect everybody's privacy. So I'm not going to say the name of the person asking the question. If you would have preferred otherwise, I apologize. I should have just asked everybody, but I'm not going to mention who is posing the question, just because I don't know if some people would prefer to have remained anonymous. Let's start. When did you start taking crypto seriously and why? This is going to be kind of a boring answer. I think I read the Wired article. There was an article in Wired about Bitcoin. I forget what year, but around 2012-ish, 2011, 2012-ish, somewhere right in there. I'm not actually sure it was the Wired article. I kind of think it was, but I can't actually remember the first time I heard about Bitcoin. But by the time of the Mt. Gox meltdown, I was watching the crypto space so intently that I live blogged the Mt. Gox meltdown on my Facebook account. I was posting about it on my Facebook as it happened. So by then, I was definitely taking crypto very seriously. I have a friend who made a tremendous amount of money on Bitcoin, and he claims he and I had a Bitcoin conversation quite a bit earlier than that. I don't remember this conversation. He claims he was the one that told me about Bitcoin. I'm not sure that's correct, but he claims it was much earlier than that. So I'm not totally sure. I'm not totally sure when I started taking crypto seriously, but by the time of the Mt. Gox meltdown, I was super into crypto. How long after you began researching crypto did you make an investment decision? So in the run up to the 2013 high during the Mt. Gox heyday, I knew the price was too high. I knew the price was not going to be that high because it had gone too parabolic. So the first crypto I bought was on the way back down. It was after the Mt. Gox high. I kind of knew it was too high. I didn't buy any. I waited for it to go down. And during that period, I believe I bought some Bitcoin for $180 or something crazy like that. Some crazy low amount like that. Has your position in crypto increased since your initial investment? Yes, mightily. The initial Bitcoin I bought at that super low price obviously was a really good investment. I have made a lot of investments in crypto since then. How did you find ADA and how long ago was that? I can't remember exactly when I first heard about ADA. Later on, somebody asked a question that reminded me of when I first heard Charles Hoskinson's name. I can't remember when I first heard about ADA, but I began buying ADA, I believe it was early 2018. And I just followed a dollar cost averaging strategy. If you don't know what that is, this is not advice for you or any kind of investment or financial advice. I'm just describing what I did. I followed a dollar cost averaging strategy where I took a certain percentage out of every single paycheck. And regardless of what types of FOMO or FUD I might have been experiencing emotionally, like fear of missing out or fear, uncertainty, and doubt, things that might make you believe you should buy or you should not, I would just invest. What I did is I invested an exact percentage of every single paycheck, starting with those first purchases back in very, very early 2018. Do you have interest in other cryptos? Yes, I have. I have small amounts of a bunch of different cryptos. I have also, at the same time I began investing in ADA, I was only dollar cost averaging into two different cryptocurrencies. Um, so I sort of, in my mind, intellectually, I divided the world of crypto in two different spheres, sort of like the free world and the world ruled by the communist Chinese party. And so I kind of knew that those were going to be two different worlds, and there might be different winners in both of those worlds. So I began dollar cost averaging into one pick for the Chinese sphere and another pick for the rest of the world. My pick for the rest of the world was Cardano, and I will readily admit I invested a lot more money into Cardano than I did into my pick for sort of like the CCP controlled part of the world. And I'm glad I made that distribution. The other one did fine too. My pick for the CCP sphere did fine too. Um, Next question. Love your videos. Wondering about your personal life. Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Married, children, anything to say about your parents or grandparents? This kind of went along with another question I got. Just wondering where you're from and if everyone there sounds like you do when they speak. So these questions, I would love to answer these questions. I actually have answers to these questions that I think you guys would really like, and the answers just happen to be kind of interesting. Like some of the things about the answers to these questions are interesting to me. So I would love to answer these and talk about these things because they're things that I am happy to talk about and that I readily talk about. But the Army of Spies is not about me. It's about all of us together. So if I start answering these types of questions, it's going to turn the focus more to me. And that's not the best way for all of us to interact together. I think the best way for all of us to interact together is to talk about Cardano and not make this a thing about me. So we're gonna skip those questions. Maybe one day we'll have like a pub day. We'll have a pub day somewhere in some international destination if there are enough people in that location who would even be interested. Maybe we'll have a pub day, and if enough people can get there, I'll just like go in and circulate among everybody, and I'll totally deny, if anybody recognizes my voice, I'll totally deny that I'm the voice of this channel. But then I'll get to circulate with everybody and get to hang out with everybody who listens to this channel. That would be the most fun thing. Okay, next question. First, I want to say your content on YouTube is really great. I have not been in crypto very long, only since 2017, but I've learned a lot. I actually bought ADA on a whim because a very smart guy said it will be the future. That gamble has paid off for me big time. Okay, awesome to hear that. With formalities out of the way, I wanted to get your take on Vitalik and Charles. I used to be more skeptical of the formal methods used by ADA because I found them to be cumbersome and slow. However, after the Lugs podcast, I found them to be very well explained and extremely well thought out. Charles used them to make a foundation of bedrock very hard and resilient, which I appreciate now, especially after watching the podcast. Vitalik seems incredibly smart and driven to the point that he just wanted to make all the solutions that ADA is implementing all at once and bit off more than he bargained for. That is what I picked up from his podcast with Lex. My question is, how can you get people to fully grasp how great the formal methods really are? People are obsessed with first market. In one of my first business classes, we had a quote from the CEO of Quicken Loans. He said, we had a 40-second mover advantage. They found the bugs and fixed them. How do you get people to understand this concept? The first is not good when it's broken. Thanks for the consideration. Keep up the great work. So thank you for some very nice comments. People were very, very nice in their questions. People were extremely positive and said really nice things. I want to thank everybody who sent in questions and made such nice comments about the channel. I really appreciate that. I think there is something to this 40-second mover advantage. I think anybody who's ever worked in a tech startup understands that having first mover advantage, a large portion of that means you just make every mistake. I think the first mover is basically like the person who outlines all the wrong ways to do something. And that has certainly been the case with Turing complete blockchains and smart contracts. We've seen Ethereum make every mistake in the book. I don't think we need to get people to understand this concept. I think when people see that an Ethereum stake pool lost $75 million worth of Ethereum, lost the private keys, like was revealed to us yesterday. I think that does it. I think that does the trick. I think people get that. So I don't think we're gonna have to prove it. I think Ethereum is really our best salesman, and Ethereum's failures will sell people on the idea that there's a better way to do all this. And when they look around, the leading contender for that better way is Cardano. Okay, next question. Hello, love your channel. By far my favorite Cardano channel. Thank you. This is my first time in a cult. Laugh out loud. This is my first time in a cult. Okay, so I definitely ascribe to the Joe Rogan theory on the difference between cults and religions. You've all probably heard this, but Rogan said the difference between a cult and a religion was that in a cult, some very charismatic guy or lady gets everyone to follow them and believe that they have some connection to some higher truth. And then at some point along the way, they start sleeping with everyone's wives. That is, and in a religion, that person's already dead. It becomes a religion when that person's already dead. I don't mean to offend anyone who's deeply religious, not at all. But I thought that was a very accurate description of cults for sure. Rest assured, you are not in a cult because nobody that's part of the Army of Spies seems to know anybody else's wives. At least as far as I know. As far as I know, there's no interaction with anybody else's wives. So we're safe. We're not in a cult according to Rogan's definition so far. His question is, are there any NFTs you are interested in? Or maybe a better way to ask is, do you think NFTs are worth researching as an investment on Cardano? I've been looking at unsigs.com. Unsigs is very cool. I really like these kinds of algorithmic art. And Charles went into great detail, I believe, about algorithmic music for video games in his gaming discussion with Lex Friedman. I think that's all really interesting and really cool. But to be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't really that interested in the art market before NFTs, and I'm still not really that interested in the art market. Like, I've been to the Musée d'Orsay and been to the Louvre and seen, into the Vatican, and I've seen these very, very famous pieces of art that are sort of like foundational to the Western experience, for the last, 1,000 years or whatever. And that's very impressive. And I'm not trying to downplay the significance of art in that sense. But as far as my personal ownership of art, I've never really been that interested. Like, I'm highly interested in visual stuff. I definitely have some things in the room I'm in right now that are purely visual, and they would meet a definition of art. However, the value of those things is very low, right? These are like prints of things and stuff like that. I'm not speaking negatively about anybody who is a huge art collector. If you have some painting in your house and it's very significant to you, I'm not speaking negatively about that. I'm just saying for myself, that's not, it's not something I want to spend money on. NFTs, however, art NFTs in the crypto world are a speculative investment, just like anything else. Because I'm not a huge art lover, I haven't devoted much attention to the art NFT space. I am really excited about NFTs in general because I'm very excited about role-based NFTs. I'm way more excited about those than I am about art NFTs. And that leads me to the next question. So the next question was, creating content every day for the last 94 days surely isn't easy, so well done. So this person sent this comment in a few days ago. I truly enjoy every episode, as I'm sure others do as well. The only question I have relates to your Army of Spies project. Not sure if you're in a position to discuss this at this point, but I thought a brief rundown on a real world use cases would be cool. And then this person, I won't read the rest of their email because I revealed some personal info there. Okay, so the reason this channel was started as an offshoot of the Army of Spies role-based NFT project. So the purpose of that project, don't worry, I'm going to keep this short. I'm not going to sell you guys on the project right now. The purpose of that project was to create a system. I want to call it a system or a network, but really a marketplace for hard to procure information. And we were in Catalyst 3. We're in Catalyst number 3. And so the best way we could find to create a marketplace for obscure or hard to acquire or hard to procure information was to create role-based NFTs and have curators of this information and have people who had that information who were willing to sell it in a marketplace for the right price, right? That's why this channel is called the Army of Spies. We actually wanted to create a private intelligence apparatus, and we still do. We're still planning on doing this. So that project requires role-based NFTs because the problem with information and secrets is once you tell someone a secret, they don't want to pay you for it. Right? If I tell you a secret and then I'm like, okay, I just told you the secret, so now you know it's a really valuable secret, or maybe it's just valuable to you, so pay me. The person's like, I already know the secret. I'm not going to pay you, right? So if you have role-based NFTs, you can create this system where you have curators who can look at evidence that the person might actually have the secret, right? They might actually have the information. And then you can sort of have this escrowing of funds to make sure the person who revealed the secret actually gets paid for it, right? That's kind of necessary to induce people to reveal those kinds of secrets. Of course, there are non-de minimis challenges with this kind of marketplace. Like, you don't want to create a marketplace for people to, like try to procure like the nuclear arsenal launch codes, right? You don't want to create a marketplace where people can try to procure the gate code to Taylor Swift's Compound, right? You don't want to help people do stuff that's criminal or, bad for, the interests of a nation you're loyal to. You don't want to engage in those kind of things. So there are some challenges here, and, we thought a lot about those things, and we think we created mechanisms to prevent those kinds of problems. But those are really the kinds of NFTs I'm really interested in. The kinds of NFTs that would enable things we've never had before. Like right now, I think it would be not a bad thing for the people of the world to know if the US Federal Reserve is actually like deep in the process of creating a Fed coin. I don't think it's bad for the national interest for people to know, but I also think that the Fed is not going to tell us how deep they actually are in that. They've hinted at it, but I would like to know, like, do you guys have a working group with Silvio Macaulay at MIT? Because I know you're super in bed with MIT. Do you guys have some working group and Silvio Macaulay is actually spending, like a good portion of his time telling you guys how to create a Fed coin? Like, that would be valuable information to me. I would pay to have that information. Right now, there's not really a way for me to procure it, right? If I was like friends with someone who worked at the Federal Reserve, they'd probably tell me, even if they weren't supposed to. Also, if I could put out a bounty, right? And the person who might reveal that secret information, if they were assured that they would actually get paid, there's a price at which they would disclose that information, right? And I think there's certain types of information like that. It wouldn't be bad for the world to know that, right? It wouldn't be bad. It's not like the nuclear launch codes. It's not like Taylor Swift's mansion's gate code. Nobody needs to really know those things. but it wouldn't be bad for the world to know that, right? If I'm an environmentalist and I suspect that some country, some company, some corporation is, polluting like crazy in some valley in the Amazon, but there's no way for me to really prove it unless somebody within the company is willing to be a whistleblower, right? It'd be super valuable for me to be able to put up a bounty and say like, hey, look, we know you guys are polluting. Will somebody within the corporation just come forward and let us know, where you guys are polluting so we can go test the soil and prove that there's pollution going on here? Those are the kind of things. I don't think it'd be bad for the world to know that. I think we have too much asymmetry of information in a lot of things, right? That wouldn't be bad. Like there are some mandatory secrets, the nuclear launch codes. We don't want people to have those. But, like this X corporation is polluting like crazy illegally in this valley in the Amazon, but nobody's doing anything about it because nobody can prove that they're actually polluting. But if we put up this bounty, probably some employee of the corporation is going to come forward and tell us where we need to go test the soil and how we can link it back to the corporation. That kind of stuff. I think there's asymmetry of information that technology is going to allow us to get rid of these asymmetries of information regardless. We just think that role-based NFTs are a way of making this happen a little bit sooner. So long answer short, very, very interested in NFTs, not so much in art NFTs. Art NFTs are great too, but I'm really interested in role-based NFTs. You're going to hear more about the Army of Spies project down the road. Okay. How a Tala Prism digital identity will be used. Can you brief the step from A to Z? Is it we need a private key to access into it? What if private key bring lost or shared to other? Who is the party? Has the authority to edit the digital identity profile? Okay. So a Tala Prism digital identity is great for all of us in crypto because it works like a lot of other crypto products, right? You've got your digital identity is kind of like you can access it. You can access it to the exclusion of others in the same way that you can access your assets on a blockchain to the exclusion of others, right? No one can send your Bitcoin anywhere without being able to sign with your private keys. Similarly, you can create a digital identity solution like a Tala Prism where no one can reveal all of it or parts of it without signing with your private keys. You can also create that solution so that no one can edit the information without your private keys. Or you can make it so that a teacher involved with the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia is the only one who can edit your grades or your attendance inside your digital identity. So it's very cool. We can make it so that only your teacher has the key that needs to be used to sign the message that inserts your grades into your digital identity. However, only you, the student, have the private key that needs to be used to sign a transfer of your transcript to a college so that a college can look at your transcript. Or only you, the former student, now prospective employee, only you have the private key that needs to be used to send, all of your graduation certificates over to the prospective employer. So you can use the private key thing to allow different people to be the ones who edit different information, who allow the transfer of different information. This is the cool part about crypto projects. We can compartmentalize different parts of a digital identity and allow different people the ability to edit those or release that information to various other parties. Where do the questions or math problems come from that miners are solving? Seems weird to say that someone gives them a puzzle and they pay to play for a chance to win. Please help. So happy to have found you. Love your insight, wit, and playful nature. Many thanks for being an awesome person. Just love awesome people. Okay, so you're asking about proof of work systems. In proof of work systems, we'll think about Bitcoin. Basically, what happens is you have a hashing algorithm, SHA-256, and you take a bunch of data from the last block in the blockchain, and then you tell the miners, hey, we have a target of, like the target is 5,100,000. And we want you to come up with a nonce. We want you to come up with a nonce that is combined with the data from the last block. And then when you combine those two and then you feed it all into SHA-256, the hashing algorithm, and we want it to spit out an output. In cryptography, we call this a digest. We want to spit out an output on the other side, a digest, that is lower than the target. It's lower than 5,100,000. So the miners, they're not really, it's kind of an exaggeration to say they're solving a puzzle. It is a puzzle, and then they're trying to come up with a nonce that creates an output, a digest lower than the target. But really, they're just throwing numbers in there. They're just throwing numbers in there and doing the calculation. Is it lower than the target? No. Okay, go to the next nonce. Is it lower than the target? No. Go to the next nonce. And the person with, a person with a lot of hashing power can find a nonce that satisfies the target faster, probably than someone with less hashing power. That's how the whole thing works. So they're not even really solving a puzzle. The puzzle is the same puzzle every time. It's just that the target for the digest changes. The target changes depending on, you could do different things, but depending on how much hashing power is on the network, right? So if there's it can adjust. If there's a ton of hashing power in the network, then the target becomes more difficult. And you want that to adjust, like in the case of Bitcoin, so that a block is produced. Somebody finds that nonce to produce a block like every 10 minutes. That's why we have to adjust the target. I actually used to go around to kind of like tech companies in my area and give a little presentation. It was kind of like a crypto 101 presentation. So I actually have really good slides about how block production works in proof of work, but we are focused on a proof of stake blockchain, so we won't get into any of that here. Okay, thanks a lot for doing this AMA. Please find my questions below. I know it's unpredictable. Where do you see a potential bottom price or super strong resistance level for ADA in case we do enter a bear market? Your thoughts and predictions are fine. Doesn't need to be backed by lots of data. Do you see ADA's microcaps such as Cody, CVI, and Ray outperforming ADA price developments when the mainnet actually goes live? What are your thoughts on Cody and CVI, and are you personally invested in them? Thank you very much for your efforts, as well as taking your valuable time to provide so much quality content. I truly love it. Please don't stop. I believe in a year's time, you'll be one of the leading ADA channels out there because of the quality of your content. Thank you very much, and highly appreciated. Thank you for the very kind words. I do not dare give you any kinds of guesses about any potential bottoms or potential tops or resistance levels. I do have guesses about those kinds of things, but I'm not exactly sure it's responsible of me to do that kind of thing, because I don't think any one person really can claim to have any accuracy about those things. So for me to make a guess about a potential bottom, that could lead people to feel more confidently or less confidently about ADA. And I don't want to be your financial or investment advisor. First of all, I believe it's illegal. These crypto commentators who provide nothing but investment and financial advice and then say to people, not financial advice, right? That's kind of like me opening up a medical clinic and telling people that they can cure their cancer with a bunch of folk remedies, and then being like, but not medical advice. And then a bunch of people die because they were trying to, cure their cancer, with a bunch of, berries and roots and stuff, and they died. And I was like, wasn't providing medical advice, but totally the information I gave them was the reason they didn't go to an oncologist, right? Like I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. And it's very unclear to me how those kinds of commentators comply with the regulations about investment advisors and financial advisors. So I don't want to provide any that kind of advice. Do you see microcaps such as Cody, CDI, and Ray outperforming ADA price development when the mainnet actually goes live? Again, same thing. I have guesses. I have my own guesses about these things, but I don't believe it's responsible of me, or and I also don't know that I can make a case it's compliant for me to provide that kind of advice. What are your thoughts on Cody and CDI, and are you personally invested in them? No, I don't own any of those. CDI, I believe, is the Cody version of the VIX. That's the Cody Volatility Index, or crypto. I think the C is Crypto Volatility Index. It's kind of interesting, but I'm not invested in either one. So I'm invested in the rails, not the trains. And you could make, it's all a perspective thing. You could make an argument about, different things being, microcosms of other things, and this is the rails for that. But for me, in the Cardano ecosystem, ADA is kind of the rails, and that's what I'm invested in. I'm not invested in Cody or CDI or anything else like that. It's not any kind of indictment on those projects. In fact, I've looked quite a bit at Cody's DAG architecture, and I like it. But I like to know everything about a project before I invest in it. And I honestly haven't looked closely enough at the other aspects of Cody. I've looked a lot at the technical parameters of their DAG architecture, and I like it, but I haven't looked enough at the other things about Cody. And before I invest in something, I want to know everything, like everything. And I honestly just haven't looked closely enough at any of those. Okay, in the current system, banks and private entities create and destroy money by lending and repaying debt. Cardano has a deliberate pace of monetary inflation for a time and then will remain static once max ADA is reached. That is deflationary if the population of users keeps growing. These systems are fundamentally different, and they both have their strengths and weaknesses. How will ADA be useful for daily trade if the value is ever increasing? Strongly deflationary. I'm a fan of your channel. I'm glad that it took a while to find you because I needed to make a lot of mistakes and go down dead ends to really understand what is wrong and sense how Cardano fixes those problems. I can feel the strength of what is coming. Very nice. Very nice of you to say. I appreciate that. How will ADA be useful for daily trade if the value is ever increasing, strongly deflationary? So I think you have these assets that are, I don't want to use the legacy. I have a strong impulse here to use the legacy terminology, but I'm not going to. I think you have these assets for long-term investing, right? You have these assets and you're like, hey, we've got our daily costs. We've got to buy groceries. We've got to pay the rent or the mortgage. We have to, pay for transportation. We have to pay for clothes. We have to pay for entertainment, all these things. We have to pay for utilities. And those things we will pay with something that looks a lot like a stable coin. However, some of our money we will put into savings, and those savings will be in a deflationary asset. So I think this is where stablecoins come in. I don't know if when they created Tether, they were thinking as much about day-to-day currency usage, or if they were thinking more, hey, this would be a great way to circumvent, U.S. regulators. But definitely stable coins. I mean, it's inherent in the name. They're stable, so you don't have to worry about this problem of no one wanting to spend their ADA because it's deflationary. It's just going to rise in value, over longer timelines, and it's useful for staking. Stablecoin, though, it's stable. You can spend that on your groceries. Okay, thank you for your valuable contributions to the Cardano community. Really appreciate your effort. Last minute submission for your 100 episode, if not too late for consideration. Congratulations on the milestone. Okay, probably not a not safe for YouTube discussion, but I'll ask anyways. Taxes, mandatory reporting of ADA rewards, and the immediate and future implications. What does the IRS know about my rewards, and to what extent is self-disclosure necessary and/or actually self-incrimination? Also, I'm vaguely aware of a legal challenge involving an investor refusing to pay taxes on Tesla's rewards. Any insights on this case? I'm not a tax dodger, and right or wrong, I'm aware that the IRS always wins a dispute, rigged system, blah, blah, blah. Is there a smart way to avoid excessive tax exploitation, or rather self-reporting is obligate? Pay now or pay more later? Thank you for your consideration, and no worries if this late question from the peanut gallery is not acknowledged. It is acknowledged. So I have known people who got on the wrong side of the IRS. And not only did it affect them the reverberations of the impact of getting on the wrong side of the IRS, especially if you're deep, the reverberations can last for decades. It can be intergenerational. It can wreck you financially to a degree that it impacts your children, right? It impacts the way you were forced to bring them up. And it actually has an impact on their life. Don't get on the wrong side of the IRS. Pay your taxes, right? They believe that staking, I can tell you right now, right? The prevailing sentiment seems to be that staking rewards are income. Pay your taxes, right? Just pay your taxes. Don't try to fight the IRS. There are many battles we can fight in life, economic and otherwise. Fighting the IRS is a losing battle in a lot of cases on something like this, right? I mean, certainly stand up for yourself, but on something like this, I think the IRS is gonna characterize those staking rewards as income, and I think you should pay your taxes on them. I would not engage in any how did you put it? Avoidance of excessive tax exploitation. I wouldn't engage in any of that. I would just pay the taxes. Okay, this next one is a little bit long, so I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. This person says, I'm relatively new to the crypto space, so I could well be wrong or misinformed on these points. However, this is something I'm thinking about. What would you like to happen with Cardano? Obviously, mass adoption and a rising value would be nice, but here's my main issue. A well-adopted Cardano could spell the end for large-scale financial institutions, maybe even governments. As an optimist, I'd like to see the bad actors removed and a fairer system implemented. As a pessimist, I'd expect a fairer system. The old guard can't control to be shut down or manipulated in some way. As a realist, I love the idea of decentralized democratized finance, but I also think a large portion of society is made up of feckwits and loonies. So any system in their hands is at least as much at risk as it would be from corrupt institutions. So what would you like to happen? So I think it's different. I think it's different depending on what region we're talking about. I think in the developing world, I think they can leapfrog a lot of the decrepit legacy systems that we're currently used to in the developed world. So I think someplace like Ethiopia, I think if they adopt a lot of Cardano solutions, I think they can leapfrog us and skip a lot of the lame stuff we've experienced. Just like, a lot of there are people my age in Ethiopia who will have never heard the AOL 56K modem sounds. I think the first one I ever used was like 14.4, but they'll never hear the beep beep. They're never going to hear that. They, their first interaction with the internet and the web might have been a phone. They never experienced the 56K dial-up days, and good for them. And so I think for them it could be the same thing. They could leapfrog all these legacy systems. I think in the developed world, it's going to be this weird accommodation and compromise with the legacy systems, where we'll get a lot of crypto type entities starting to look a lot more like the legacy entities, and the legacy entities sort of taking on new roles that should really belong to the crypto entities. So, and I think that's probably realistically, I think that's the way it's going to go. I would like to skip all of the legacy stuff and just go directly to crypto. I would like us to use crypto-based stable coins for day-to-day transactions. I would like everybody to be putting, some of their income every paycheck into a deflationary asset so that their wealth can grow. And that has some wide-ranging implications. And I'll admit, I haven't totally thought out, how all those things end, but I think that experiment is worth doing given that the current system doesn't work. It's broken. Why do you think Cardano is being overlooked? Do you think it is, or am I imagining it? Bitcoin and Ethereum are clearly the big boys at the moment, but it seems to me that Cardano is being ignored as a contender, even though it is clearly establishing some very impressive credentials and real use cases that have been properly considered and thoroughly developed. It feels to me like the very institutions that crypto originally aimed to transform have actually usurped and adopted BTC and ETH as asset classes they can invest in and realign to their existing systems while getting richer. Cardano, on the other hand, is genuinely different enough that the whales haven't figured out how to exploit it, or perhaps they look at Africa adoption in a more arrogant way. How will the how will banking the poor citizens transform the fortunes of a greed mongering investment bank? I can see a longer game here where stress testing a comprehensive ecosystem and challenging third world environment means that rollout anywhere else will be more straightforward. But if that's the case and I can see it, then surely they can, so they just bided their time, waiting for a lower entry point. What am I missing? So I think it's a lot like Bitcoin itself, right? Back in 2012, 2013, I could see that Bitcoin was going to be a super important asset class. The banks couldn't yet, right? I'm sure some people at banks could, but banks as institutions, as organizations, they couldn't see it yet. We're just ahead of the curve, right? They, a lot of them understand Bitcoin and Ethereum at this point. We're just ahead of the curve. They don't understand ADA yet probably because they just haven't had enough time. They haven't invested enough time to understand the difference in technology and where things are going. Okay, finally, are you invested? Might be too personal, and I understand if you don't want to answer. I also applaud your stance on not offering that kind of video, chart, short-term opinions, memes. But having said that, are you holding and or do you have any expectations for it? I'm more conditioned to the concept of 5% returns. So for me, price is less important than a reliable return. Staking would seem to offer this, but it's early days for proving stability when your horizons extend for 30 years. Hope that gives you something useful. Either way, best wishes for episode 100. Thank you so much. I appreciate people were very, very nice and complimentary in all their questions. I really appreciate that. Are you invested? Yes, I kind of answered that question. I started dollar cost averaging into Cardano. I was really interested in Cardano already in 2017, but in 2018, I started dollar cost averaging with a percentage of every paycheck, whether the market was up, down, whatever. I put a certain amount of every single paycheck into Cardano, and some people would have said it was reckless. In the Real Vision terminology, in Raoul Pal's investment network, anybody would have said my allocation to Cardano was irresponsibly long. Is that what the t-shirts say? The Real Vision t-shirts, irresponsibly long. I think that's what they say. So I was irresponsibly long in my allocation to Cardano. Okay, thanks to the YouTube channel. It is excellent, and the effort put in really appreciated. This is a new question, by the way. Likely it's too late for 100. Nope, it's not. You're here. But something I was wondering about is the future Cardano CIF. I think you mean, I think they're called CIPs, Cardano Improvement Proposals. CIP process, which sounds like it may be part of Voltaire governance, but I thought governance was already sort of starting with Catalyst town halls. I probably would know more via Catalyst, but I'm waiting for the Uroi hardware wallet update to be completed. Yep, me too. I can vote. I asked before Charles mentioned CIP 007 in the Lex interview, and it had a lot of appeal to me because I can relatively easily upskill for being an SPO, but no, I wouldn't have the time to market it to get the 1 to 3 million ADA required to make it functional, but really wanted to help make the system more distributed. Just it would mean a cutback return compared to delegating until CIP 007 is implemented. Also, in case it isn't too late for AMST, oh, good, you call it AMST instead of AMA, that's great. Why is IOHK doing something with Mantis and ETC Ethereum Classic? Thanks so much for your dedication. So Cardano improvement proposals, why is that a thing? So, I mean, I think I think Voltaire involves multiple things. So we've got Catalyst, right? Catalyst is pretty revolutionary in that we have on-chain voting for a huge amount of money to fund projects, right? This is revolutionary in crypto. This is pretty amazing. The Cardano CIP process, I mean, that could just as easy. I don't think Catalyst. I don't think Catalyst is the vehicle for accomplishing some of the Voltaire governance goals, and Catalyst is just the most convenient tool in the toolbox right now to do these kind of things. But I think you if Catalyst turned out to be the best vehicle to vet Cardano improvement proposals, I think they would use Catalyst for it. If there's some other better tool, I think they'll use some other better tool. So I think that the important part is the ethos. The ethos of Voltaire is that Cardano holders should get to vote on what happens to Cardano. And then you get in this larger discussion we won't get into right now about plutarchy and whether you should get more votes. Pure, like all the votes should go to the people with the most money, the most Cardano. Should it be a merit-based system? Should it be based on work? Should it be based on who's providing storage to the system? There's a lot of different questions there, but I think Catalyst is just sort of like a tool to accomplish the ethos of Voltaire that the community should run the blockchain. It should be a community-led blockchain. I think the CIP process, Catalyst, I think the medium that those take place through is probably not as important as the ethos. Okay, next question was very short and sweet. Alex Chirpanoy and Ergo. So I actually get a lot of questions about Alex Chirpanoy and Ergo. People ask me, why don't you cover Ergo more? Charles says that Alex is a genius, right? I I believe that Charles is probably correct. If Charles Hoskinson tells me that somebody's a genius, I'm pretty sure they are super, 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 super smart. The thing about Ergo is, I mean, the first thing that anybody will tell you about Ergo is that it's a proof of work system. And I understand the rationale, right? And if you ask me, like, what is the most cutting edge version of proof of work you could possibly create? I would say, even without having done even more research on Ergo, I would say it's probably Ergo, because the people I hear saying that Ergo is the most cutting edge version of proof of work seem to be extremely smart people. To me, that justifies Ergo as an experiment, right? As an intellectual project. Like, how far can we stretch proof of work? Like, that makes perfect sense to me. But if you ask me, like, why do we need Ergo? Why do we need Ergo when we have this Ouroboros proof of stake system? That's the part I remain unconvinced. I've seen some arguments that maybe it will help us, to make light wallets the de facto choice. But it seems like I've seen some other presentations of some other types of technology that would do that, that would solve sort of like the light wallet problem, making light wallets trustless, basically. We've done multiple videos on this channel about that. So I don't know if that's a good reason for it. Maybe there are other reasons why we need proof of work in the Cardano ecosystem that I just don't understand. I haven't heard about it yet. That's super possible. So far I am unconvinced, in the sense that I haven't seen any evidence that persuades me, but I haven't exactly gone out of my way to find evidence that would persuade me that there's something we really need Ergo for. Maybe there is, and I just don't get it yet. But so far, I haven't seen anything that makes me think. I haven't seen anything that was highly persuasive that there's this burning need for proof of work in Cardano, or as an additive to Cardano or anything like that. I don't understand. I'll put it this way. I am unconvinced, in the sense that I just don't understand, but I haven't seen anything that explains to me why we need Ergo yet, but maybe there is. I think I skipped the question from the last person. Why is IOHK doing something with Mantis and ETC Ethereum Classic? Okay, so this goes back to the very start of this video. I said that a question later on made me think about the first time I heard of Charles Hoskinson. So I believe it was Charles back in the day when Ethereum broke the immutability of the Ethereum blockchain after the DAO hack, so they could reverse the DAO hack. People were like, this is ridiculous. We shouldn't break the immutability. We're going to keep mining on the original chain. We're not going to move to this chain in this alternate universe where the DAO hack didn't happen. We're going to keep mining on the original chain. That came to be known as Ethereum Classic. And I remember, I believe it was a Reddit post. This was a while ago, so I could be misremembering this, but I believe it was a Reddit post. This guy was like, everybody was asking the question, well, who's going to technically support this new chain? And if I remember correctly, there was a person who made a Reddit post and it was like, I will technically support the Ethereum Classic chain. And I believe that was Charles Hoskinson. And that was the first time I've heard of Charles. Because, of course, we all know Charles was involved with Ethereum right at the start, only for 6 months, but he was one of the founders of Ethereum. And so when the remaining founders of Ethereum decided to break the immutability of the blockchain to fix the DAO problem, right? And people were like, hey, there's this little vacuum. We don't have anybody to technically support ETC. My recollection is that Charles made a post on Reddit and I had no idea who he was, but a bunch of people were so taken aback. They were like, really? Okay, great. This will totally work then. People were like very impressed that this Charles guy was going to step into the technical shoes of ETC. And I was like, man, who is this guy? People seem to be very impressed by the fact that he's going to be involved in ETC. And I believe that was the first time I heard of Charles Hoskinson. So why is it IOHK doing something with Mantis and ETC? I believe it's due to that legacy that Charles volunteered to kind of step up and provide some technical support for ETC. However, it has other benefits, right? Because IOHK built Mantis, they understood very early on in the development of Cardano the problems and limitations with Ethereum, not from an outsider's perspective, but they really, really understood the problems and limitations with Ethereum. It's kind of like if Ford were going to build a bunch of electric cars and they had an opportunity to build the powertrain for the Model 3. They were like, hey, we're going to build EVs in like 5 or 10 years. And we have this opportunity to be the builder of the powertrain for all of the Model 3s right now. Like, of course we'll do it, right? Ford would probably say no. But a rational thinker would be like, of course we'll do it, because then we'll understand all of the problems. We'll understand all of the problems with, the current Tesla, engineering stack. And maybe our version will be all the better for our understanding those problems. This would never actually happen in the automotive industry, right? Tesla would never give control of their, powertrain construction to Ford, and Ford would never do anything to benefit the production of Teslas. But, kind of similar. I mean, this is the level of insight it gave IOHK when they built out Mantis. So I think that was a really good call by Cardano. And, they probably there's nobody outside of Ethereum that understands Ethereum as well as IOHK, and Cardano has been the beneficiary of that. All right, this has been the 100th episode. Like I said at the very start, I sincerely appreciate everybody who's been here from the start and everybody who's joined up at some point along the way. Many more to come. Talk to you tomorrow.